Okay, welcome everyone. I hope you have a nice coffee break. We're going to kick off the Empirical Studies session. Our first speaker is Sera Linardi from University of Pittsburgh.
Okay, thank you for being here last day and last few sessions. All right, so I'm going to jump straight in. So this is a field experiment on services for people who have been incarcerated for integration back into society. So that's called reentry. Okay, so the motivation is 1/3 of people who have been released in jail are rearrested within 6 months. So if you see this line here, you can see that there's a large number of people that are rearrested, and then as time goes on, for example, within the first year here, you have almost more than half of the people who left jail are rearrested. And so the cost of jail is about, $30,000 per person per year. So the US incarceration system is not very good in terms of, moving people back into society. So the numbers are still very similar now in 2020. So what we want to ask is, can you reduce recidivism, which is people returning to jail, people being rearrested again, by giving support to people who have left jail, people who have been incarcerated, by giving them social support? So reentry services are available for people who have been incarcerated, but they're not used very much. So a lot of these services are used once or twice. People don't show up very much. And there has been randomized control trials on these services that have shown mixed results. So a lot of these services are around employment. There are also wraparound services, which is services that has like a caseworker to help you navigate through housing, through employment, getting food and shelter. And they have null or negative results if you only look at rearrest rates. So that's a puzzle. So the next question is, if you see people who leave jail, they're obviously in a very dire situation. It's very hard to figure out where they should go. So they're not counted as homeless because the night before they left jail, they had housing, so they can't go to shelter. And some of them don't understand how to navigate the bus system. Some of them have the wrong clothing, like they're released in the winter with summer clothing. And so it's really, really difficult to survive if you've just left jail, your phone doesn't work, you may not have an ID. So clearly they need services, but these services have not worked. So it's not clear whether the treatment dose that was given to them is inappropriate. Maybe they were given too much services or too little services, or the kind of services that was given, the composition wasn't correct. So this is a field experiment where the goal is to create variation in dosages, meaning the number of time people use social services, so that we can have variation and we can use that to calculate what is the impact of using reentry services on recidivism. Okay. All right, so here's the field experiment. So we partner with a service provider in Pittsburgh, and then we used an encouragement design where we incentivize them to use more design, and we don't give any constraint about which kind of services they could use. So we want, what we want to do is increase the number of visits, and then see what kinds of visit people request. And then we're going to look at the probability of arrest 3 years after we recruit them to the study. And then we want to look at treatment on the treated, so people who actually come, because you'll see the design later, people who actually come and see whether or not their rearrest change. And then for the outcome variable, we're going to look at what kind of service do people actually ask for, and then we want to do heterogeneity analysis on gender and race. All right, so real quick overview about what kind of nonprofit we were partnering with. This is in Pittsburgh, and basically they give services in their office, so people come to their office. There are two kinds of services. One is short run, so food, clothing, toiletries, things are very urgent. ID, driver license, and also bus passes, transportation assistance, or other assistance to get from place to place. And then here are like some long-run things: housing, rent, security deposit, and then job search. So if you look at a lot of re-entry services, a lot of them focuses on this. Computer lab to like do all your administrative work, and then shoes or like clothing for interviews. Okay. So the way we do this experiment is our research assistant just kind of sat in the office of the nonprofit as people come in, and then ask them if they want to be part of our study. If they want to be part of our study, we tell them, you know, we will track your criminal, like your criminal offenses and arrest for the next 3 years, and we'll also track your service usage. We'll give you bus passes, and so we put a bunch of cards in front of them. And these cards randomizes them to 3 possible treatments. And let me show you what the treatments look like. Okay, so you see these like 3 cards, and these are actually designed by our nonprofit partner. So in all of them, it says, please come 5 times. And this number is the number that was given by our nonprofit partner, and they say, you know, we see that when people come about 5 times, they build a relationship with our staff, and then they continue to come. It like changes into like, you know, a close relationship. In this one, if you come 5 times, then you get a $50 gift card. So this is a debit card. And this one, so this is the hard incentive. You have to work harder to get your incentive. In this one, we give them the same reference point, but the research assistant pre-signed 2 of them. So you get like a bonus of 2, so you only have to come 3 times to get your $50. So that's the control, easy, hard treatment. Easy meaning come 3 times, get $50. Hard is come 5 times, get $50. Okay. So we collected the data, and like we could not, and COVID happened, and then we had to stop collecting then. We have a synthetic control group, which is a group that never experienced the randomization. They never met the research assistant. They come on the days where the research assistant weren't there. And then we used this group to basically test whether or not there was any discouragement from being randomized into the control group, and just sort of to check whether our controls are appropriate. Okay, so I think I've told you this. The only thing I want to tell you is that our criminal offense and arrest data come from the Unified Judicial System of Pennsylvania. So it's state data. We could not pull in federal data, but we have very few people who had like federal level crimes, and we didn't pull in neighboring state data because people have very little mobility actually moving around. Okay. So I'm going to just go to our sample. How much time do we have? So we have 29% female, almost 50-50 black. The age is about 43 years old. About high school, people have high school. And then there's some percentage that are employed. 30% of them already know of the service center when they were still in jail. They have 2 children. 43% of them are using something else that is not this nonprofit for support, right? So this is not their only source of support. People have been arrested about 8 years or 3 years before we start our study. And then the duration of the last arrest is like heavily skewed by a couple people that are arrested for decades. But the median is 240 days. So about 8 months, and the first quartile is like 2 months. So they were in jail for 2 months. Okay. So here are the crimes, their last crimes before they came to us. So felony, as you know, is the most severe type of crime. So this is from like 535 people that was in our study. Misdemeanor, about 20-something%. And then you see here, summary crimes are very, very small crimes. These are like disorderly conduct, being drunk in public, having a suspended license, possession, that kind of things. So you can see that 60% of the people in our study actually committed very small crimes. Okay. So I'm going to show you the results. And the first thing I'm going to show you is what do incarcerated people request when they leave jail and they go to the service center. And we don't tell them we don't offer them anything, we just say like, what do you need, right? So we are going to break this down in terms of how many times they come, whether they come 1 time, 2 times, or 5 times. And so this is what we see. So this percentage here on this axis is the percentage of services that are short-term services, meaning urgent things, food, shelter, clothing, toiletries, bus passes. So you can tell that like in the beginning, everybody came for urgent things, right? Just like, I need to live. And then looking at the people who come 5 times, you see that over time, the requests for urgent needs go down. So they went from like very, very urgent things towards more long-term needs like employment or family reunification. There is something going on with the 4th visit. We're not really sure what, but there is this downward trend with the 5 visits. And so the next question that we want to ask is whether or not we're able to get people to come more often with the incentive, right? So we give them this $50 if you come 3 times, or if you come 5 times, are we able to move behavior? So this is the control group, and as you can see, 70% of people came only once or twice. So this is the original problem that the nonprofit started with, is that services are underutilized. And here's the people who come 5 times or more are about like less than 10%, right? Okay, so if we move to the group where they get $50 if they come 5 times, you see that we're able to move the people that come 5 times from something like 8% to something like 18% here, right? So there is we're able to incentivize people to come more often. But the interesting thing is, for the easy incentive where we pay after people come 3 times, you have just as many people coming 5 times, right? But what you're getting also is there's now a lot of people coming 3 to 4 times. So 50% of people in the easy group completed the incentive, and about 19% of people in the hard group completed the incentives. So it seemed like there was some encouragement level at which people continue coming, and like was a more optimal encouragement level. So how much time do I have? 5 minutes, okay. So I'm gonna show you now kind of the breakdown of when these differences start. So this is like over time. You see that the changes happened early on. Here's the control group. Here is 5 visits. Here is 3 visits for $50. You can see that separation happened really early. So they were told, hey, you're in this group, after they pulled a card, and then they immediately changed their behavior within the first month. And here's the effect on offenses. And offenses are interaction with the police that may or may not result in an arrest. Like here's the arrest. So this one, for example, someone called 911, the police comes, they write you up. So you're in the data set. The police might not pick you up and bring you to jail and arrest you. If they do that, you're in that data set, right? So there is more offenses than arrest. So what you see here is the hard group. And this is not significant, but the hard group seems to be arrested more than the other 2 groups, which is a similar pattern that we've seen in the wraparound services, where you have seen that people who are treated doesn't do better, or sometimes even do worse than the people who are treated. Here we see that that's happening with the hard incentive group, although this is not significant. Okay, so this is now the effect on the arrest, like a regression on that. So in this one, that is the intent to treat, so that is just taking everybody in the easy group and everyone in the arrest group and looking at their effect on rearrest, so nothing is significant. For the treatment on the treated, so we instrument the visits using the treatments and then see the effect on the arrest, and again, there's no results here. So we didn't have enough women to do heterogeneity analysis on women, but we did it on Black and non-Black. So as you know, there is a big racial difference in terms of prison incarceration rates with like, this is Black being a very, very high rate of incarceration. So we really wanted to look at Black, and then this is what we see. So this line is for non-Black subjects, and this line is for Black subjects. And this is the number of times they come to the visit center. So that was like our first outcome variable, whether or not the incentive was able to get people to come more. And then as you can see here, it really, really moves the Black clients a lot more, right? The results were coming from them. They were coming like more than 3.5 times to the visit center, while the people who are the non-Black are about 2.5 times. And so when we separate out the treatment effect between the Black and non-Black, we're seeing that these are also changing their behavior. So the people in the easy group are 12.8% less likely to be rearrested than the people in the control group. And here's the effect of one visit on rearrest rate. So each visit actually reduces the rearrest rate significantly. Right? So the next question is why? Why do we have these racial differences in the treatment effects? So we don't really know, but here are just some guesses. So one guess is that the Black samples are more male, have more children. They're less likely to use other services, so this was the only service that they're using, and maybe that's why they're easier to incentivize. And less of them are staying in institutional housing, like halfway homes, where they have more support, more structure. Also, we're surprised to see that more of the Black subjects actually have lower severity of crime. So 47% have summary crimes compared to 35% in the non-Black subject. So I think I am out of time. So real quickly, takeaway. There's a really big rate of reincarceration among people who have been released from prison. Reentry services are out there, but are underutilized. They're so underutilized, it's hard to figure out what is the effect of these services on rearrest. So we do a randomized controlled trial where we attempt to change the dosages and then be able to see what is the effect of services or visits on rearrest. We see that visits does reduce rearrest for Black clients, and the easy incentivization seems to work the best. And so thinking about compliance to treatment and thinking about the dosage effects could be a helpful way of thinking about social service provision. Thank you very much.
I think we have time for a question, if someone has one.
So, Sera, I'm wondering if there's literature that looks at other outcomes besides rearrest, right? So we could also ask, some of the motivation is employment or housing-related concerns, for example, do the program successfully improve the rate at which people are able to find employment or housing? And then, and then how does that connect into the picture of, whether they end up rearrested later? Oh.
I think the rearrest rate is still the rate that is kind of the gold standard for everybody to try to hit. But in looking at so we had a follow-up. We did a survey of this 535 people after the study. So this is a follow-up about 4 or 5 years after the study, and it was quite hard to track them. So one of, I think, the outcome variable is even being contactable, having the same phone number that you can contact, having family members, your emergency contact person, know where you are. So there are definitely outcome variables that we think are more granular rather than rearrest to look at how effective people are in reintegrating. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to Sera.